The year is 2020, and Borussia Dortmund have just completed the acquisition of 16-year-old English midfielder Jude Bellingham from Birmingham City. The youngster's boyhood club retires his number 22 shirt. Critics are dumbfounded. Isn't that a little too hasty? This isn't the first time a wonder kid has burst onto the scene after all. It's been 4 years since then, and Bellingham has more than proved his boyhood club right. From the tiny streets of Birmingham to the yellow wall of Dortmund to the iconic Santiago Bernabeu, a meteoric rise doesn't even begin to describe the madness Bellingham has done in football. If Real Madrid weren't already a scary team, they went and added Jude Bellingham to their ranks in 2023. At just 20 years of age, he joins up with other youngsters at Los Blancos in what may yet be Florentino Perez's third attempt at getting the Galacticos just right like his second try. What has Bellingham done to earn such a move to arguably the biggest stage in world football? Before we get into that, how about an origin story? Bellingham started his career at Birmingham City through the youth ranks in 2010, but it wasn't until nearly a decade later in August of 2019 that he got the chance to debut in the senior team. It was a League Cup first-round tie against Portsmouth. This debut was unusual. It was record-breaking in that he became the youngest ever player at 16 years and 38 days old to feature for Birmingham City. Even better, after playing for 80 minutes and getting subbed off, he was awarded the Man of the Match award. It was clear as day that the Englishman was talented. This led to more time in the first team until he eventually nailed down a starting role. Between the 2019-20 season, Bellingham featured in 44 matches for the Blues, scoring 4 goals in the process. Unfortunately, a talent like Bellingham's is hard to keep under wraps. Bigger clubs started to swarm. For smaller clubs, selling is usually better than losing the player for free. So, in came Borussia Dortmund in 2020 to cut a check for £25 million, making the youngster the most expensive 17-year-old at the time. One thing that's been well established about Dortmund is its ability to develop young players. The BVB have sold their fair share of young talents who came in for little to no money but left for big fees, such as Jadon Sancho, Erling Haaland, Ousmane Dembele, Henrik Mkhitaryan, Christian Pulisic, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and so on. As much as Dortmund are a selling club, they're also surreal at improving players significantly. In the 3 seasons that Bellingham was at Dortmund, he played 132 times and scored 23 goals. As a central midfielder in his teens, those are decent numbers, given his role at the club only grew from his first season. For perspective, by his second season, Bellingham had developed into a leader in the Dortmund dressing room and was already getting captain duties. It was around this time that he got called up to represent the Three Lions. His international debut came against Ireland on the 12th of November 2020 in a friendly match that saw England run out 3-0 winners. However, it was not until 2 years later that Bellingham got on the score sheet for his country. And he did it in style too, scoring England's first goal at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. After the World Cup and going into the 2023-24 season, Real Madrid was starting to sniff around the Dortmund man. You'd think the addition of youngsters like Aurelien Tchouameni and Eduardo Camavinga and the experience of Toni Kroos and Luka Modric would suffice for Los Blancos. But they were looking to the future, a time when Kroos and Modric could no longer work magic in midfield. With Casemiro joining Manchester United like former teammate Raphael Varane, the most successful Galactico era seemed to be coming to a head. Bellingham was the perfect replacement for these midfield maestros. He had both defensive and offensive qualities that added even more balance to a team short-staffed at the back. Although some expected the Englishman to be Kroos and Modric's understudy until such a time as both legends left the club or the game, how Bellingham was eventually deployed at Los Blancos was mind-blowing. Despite playing mostly as a central midfielder at Birmingham City and Dortmund, he was given the number 10 role, allowing him to roam around the final third and express his attacking capabilities. Keep in mind that Madrid aren't short-staffed in attack like in defense. They have the likes of Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr., 2 of the most lethal forwards in Europe, and let's not forget Federico Valverde and Brahim Diaz. With the weight of Zinedine Zidane's iconic number 5 shirt on Bellingham's back at the biggest club in the world, some feared that he might struggle to settle in his first season or pull a Hazard. But even those who predicted his success could not have been ready for just how he pulled it off. Bellingham finished the season as Real Madrid's top goal scorer in La Liga with 19 goals and 6 assists. These numbers rise to 23 goals and 13 assists in 42 appearances in all competitions. That's 36 goal contributions in 42 games. Essentially, Jude Bellingham was involved in a goal for Los Blancos 86% of the times he played. Those are world-class numbers. But the scary truth has flown under the radar. Two things made football different from other sports. It requires constant movement and intense focus on the ball, like most sports played with a ball. Secondly, the pace of the game is much slower and there's less scoring involved. We highlighted these factors for one reason. The slower pace, movement and concentration make positioning a core skill in football. That's a skill that Bellingham excels at as if he isn't 20. Midfielders typically struggle to handle positional shifts and responsibilities, especially when they need to press upward and create chances. That's not necessarily their fault, but the curse of the position they play. See, the midfield is the connection between the defense and the attack. Commit too much to attack and your defense is exposed, leading to more successful counter-attack scenarios for the opposition. On the other hand, if midfielders commit too much to defense and sit deeper, the forwards will struggle to break down the opposition's defense while on the attack. So, there's a need for balance, to know when to press forward or sit back. You'd think we'd say that Bellingham has perfected this balance, but that isn't the case. If anything, he simply doesn't care. For perspective, during the 2022 Bundesliga season, the Englishman covered 6.7 miles per game on average, which was the fourth highest in the league that season. He knows he could be lethal in front of goal, and he goes for it. At the same time, this keenness on attack doesn't take away from his defensive qualities. These defensive qualities are why his expected goals were 8.5 going into his debut campaign. However, the over 20 goals and a shot conversion rate of over 20% he finished the campaign with shows that he couldn't have been more underrated in his offensive output. Why? As of his 14th goal in the La Liga, 13 of said goals came from inside the box in the form of tap-ins. He didn't exactly have a moment of Messi-esque brilliance where he did all the hard work on his own and put away a belter. His goals weren't beginner's luck either. Bellingham is an excellent reader of the game with a great understanding of positioning. So he gets himself into the right areas to increase his chances of scoring goals. And before you ask, what about his defensive responsibilities? Remember, we said his keenness on attack doesn't remove from his defensive qualities. In the recently concluded season, besides his output in front of goal, the Englishman has also been one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. In terms of interceptions, tackles won, possessions won and duels won, he ranks in the 95th percentile or higher. Even better, these stats are from his defensive qualities in the final third. Rather than worrying about the space opening behind him by migrating out of midfield, Bellingham mounts a high press, thus maintaining his defensive responsibilities while going on the attack. That's such an elite level of play. But we all know that football is more than just statistics. Even then, Bellingham does well by most critics and fans alike. You need not take our word for it either. But in 2022, Guardiola had this to say about the Los Blancos man. Everybody knows about his quality and skills, but this guy is something special in terms of mentality. For a 20-year-old, Bellingham plays with the maturity of a tested veteran, which is reminiscent of some of the players of old that we swear play better football. His rise to leadership position as a teenager at Borussia Dortmund further confirms this mindset. Not to mention his ability to evolve his game, such that he plays football as he loves it without causing a balance nightmare for the manager and team is simply extraordinary. Why is this scary? So far, we've referred to the truth about Bellingham's talent as scary. Why not just the truth? Why does it have to be terrifying? The answer is straightforward. Good players get playing time, and great players never catch a break. Year after year, since leaving the small stage of Birmingham City, Bellingham's consistently proved that he deserves all his flowers. He might just be one of the few English talents that aren't overhyped beyond what they bring to the table. The problem is that those kinds of players soon become indispensable. Either that goes to his head, or he becomes overplayed. Now, Bellingham has proved to be wise beyond his years, with a maturity that belies his age. However, he isn't the first youngster to look like he can handle the pressure. Adil Taarabt was one of the most gifted youngsters if we ever saw one, and showed some resemblance of maturity at first. But the moment he felt the spotlight, he unraveled quickly as impulsive and heady. The result was a roller coaster career that never quite lived up to expectations. Part of what made Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi have such longevity in the sport and continue to dominate their respective leagues long after their prime was down to the managers who handled their transitional phase. The disciplined Ronaldo, who dribbles less and focuses on strategic plays these days, used to be a whiny showboater until he was set right by the great Sir Alex Ferguson. Messi, on the other hand, owes his career longevity and prowess to Pep Guardiola, who rescued him from poor company, partying, and junk food. Can you imagine what the beautiful game would be like today if these monsters masquerading as mere mortals had gone down their default paths? Ronaldo might have ended up as a glorified Anthony, all sophisticated, zero impact. Messi could have ended up as the first Hazard or post-Euros Calvin Phillips, unfit, unplayable, and wallowing on the bench as his talent waned with each passing season. Conversely, if Bellingham does manage to keep himself in check, he's still at risk of being overplayed. The better you are, the more likely managers are to unleash you as a trump card. And if you play in a very competitive league where one slip-up decides whether you win the campaign, that increases your odds of playing every game without a break. We saw this with players like Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney in the past, and they ended up having shorter careers compared to their peers. For perspective, Ronaldo's older than Rooney, but the Englishman looks like he presided over the Portuguese's christening. And as far as legends of the game go, Ronaldo is heads, shoulders, and knees above Rooney. The Englishman might rival the Al Nassr forward for the crown of Manchester United legend. Still, Ronaldo will go down in history as one of the most lethal forwards and decorated players to ever indulge in the beautiful game. Make no mistake though, there was no doubt about Rooney's talent. He was magical on the ball and was an even more versatile player, capable of playing anywhere in the final third, including attacking midfield, the wings, and as a centre forward or striker. There's a reason he's third on the Premier League's all-time goal scorers list. Michael Owen was another special player who was ruined by overplaying until he became an injury-prone mess. The man thrived in England, became a Galactico, and won the Ballon d'Or. In today's game, Bukayo Saka and Bruno Fernandes are examples of players who've been severely overplayed. Saka was a shining light in a messy Arsenal team that was still trying to find its place in the world and form an identity under Arteta. Naturally, that made him reliable. The more he developed, the more the team and manager relied on him. He's still a fantastic player, but compare him to Phil Foden, who wasn't made to develop quickly and rescue a struggling team. Plus, you can't forget that Foden made his Premier League debut in 2017, 2 years before Saka burst onto the scene. Yet, currently, Saka has only played 33 games less than Foden. Guardiola was criticised for not playing the Stockport native, but he kept asking for patience so that Foden could develop at his own pace. The result is a frightening youngster who might just edge an aging Kevin De Bruyne out of Manchester City. Excluding his current participation in the Euros, Bellingham's played 240 matches since catching the eye in 2020. That's a decent run of games, given how much he's developed into a crucial player since then. We can only hope that Carlo Ancelotti and whoever takes over from the Italian manager at the Santiago Bernabeu makes Bellingham a better player, much like Pep did with Messi and Fergie with Ronaldo. We'd hate to see such a generational talent wasted. What are your thoughts on Jude Bellingham? Will he continue to shine, or will he flop at some point? Let us know below, and don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it.